Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior and welcome to another Mortal Kombat 11 video. Now in today's History of installment, I'll be talking about none other than the daughter of Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade, Cassie Cage. Now in last week's Liu Kang video, I was well aware that I did say that Kung Lao would be featured this week. And well, he is, but he'll be coming out tomorrow, which means you'll be getting 2 History of episodes this weekend, as I was in fact able to free up some time. So please do rest assured and know that that episode will be coming out tomorrow. So without any further ado, let's carry on with the Cassie video. Now though Cassie Cage has appeared in 2 different Mortal Kombat games, she still is a bit of a new character to the series, as MKX did focus on introducing a new generation, and it did somewhat stifle the amount of character development each individual could have. However, there's a lot more going on with this character just outside of the games. So in order for me to properly talk about Cassie, we need to go back to the events that transpired during MK9. Now MK9 is an extremely important point in the Mortal Kombat series. It really shows how the current timeline deviates from the original, and one of the most important moments to have happened in that game is Sindel's massacre. This led to the death of many characters that otherwise didn't or haven't died yet in the original timeline, leaving only Sonya Blade and Johnny Cage as the survivors. Now these events would transpire because Raiden was given a message from his previous timeline counterpart with the extremely vague message known as "he must win." Now because of this, it would lead to many different alterations from the original timeline. Now despite the mass amount of deaths that came Raiden's way, Shao Kahn was defeated and Earthrealm was saved. But since it's Mortal Kombat we're talking about here, the peace never lasts too long. As you see, during the beginning of MKX, we find out that the fallen elder god known as Shinnok has once again risen and is leading a massive assault across Earthrealm whilst he's travelled to the Sky Temple in order to corrupt the Jinsei. Now during the final battle, Shinnok was so close to corrupting the Jinsei chamber, defeating the likes of Raiden, Fujin, Kenshi, Sonya and Johnny Cage, and he nearly kills Sonya until Johnny steps in. By watching someone he cared about being attacked, he was able to fully engage the shadow energy within him and defeat the fallen elder god, and Raiden was able to seal him within his own amulet. Now from this point onwards, there was some peace in Earthrealm, and a romance in fact blossomed between Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade. This eventually led to the two getting married and having Cassie. Now unfortunately, due to Sonya Blade's workaholic attitude and Johnny being a movie star, Cassie grew up in a bit of a weird place, and it was extremely hard for her to bond with her mother Sonya, and this created many arguments between Sonya and Johnny, as Johnny understandably wanted her to be there for Cassie, but Sonya was far too dedicated to the special forces in order to dabble in both, as she knew that she was fighting for a better future for her daughter, but it is ultimately at a loss for her creating a proper bond with her. Now over the course of time, the two would separate, and it does look like Cassie grew up with her father, as she does take on many of his mannerisms, and we know how dedicated Sonya is to her work. Now after a handful of revenants were freed of Quan Chi's rule, Jax was returned back to his human form, and it's here where Cassie was introduced to Jackie. Now the two quickly became friends, and they more or less grew up together, forming an unbreakable bond which we will see much later. Now as the years would pass by, and Cassie's now become a young adult, we learn that she's finding it extremely hard to live up to her parents' legacy, struggling to utilize shadow energy on command like Johnny, and having the somewhat strategic mindset of her mother. Cassie really did struggle with living up to their expectation, and that is something we're going to see quite a bit of in this video. Now during the Mortal Kombat X comic book series, we're introduced to a very young Cassie Cage and Jackie Briggs having a sparring match in Johnny's condo. Now during the sparring match, Cassie is surprised that at one point she is able to successfully pull off a shadow kick, which understandably catch the both of them off guard. Now later in the evening, Cassie and Jackie would travel to a fight club, and despite Jackie being extremely nervous of entering this club, Cassie is fairly confident in her skills and actually cuts her way through the line to get to a fight. But after signing up, she learns from Jackie that in fact it's not just any standard MMA fight. This is a death match, and although at first Cassie doesn't believe any of this, once she enters the arena, things get a little bit too real. Now whilst in the cage, the audience and the announcer begins to mock her due to her father's inconsistent acting career, but Cassie is the daughter of Johnny Cage and does what any Cage would have done, flips off the entire crowd. Now Cassie is rather overconfident about her skill, and when she's put up against the likes of the cryomancer Frost, she's immediately caught off guard, as she wasn't expecting to fight anyone of Outworld descent. Now the two have an extremely fierce battle, and Frost for the longest amount of time is able to gain the upper hand, but Cassie's intuition and skill is just enough to allow her to defeat Frost. Now before the fight can truly end, a massive explosion goes off in the fight club, and Cassie, terrified terrified of what's going on around her, takes the unconscious body of Frost with Jackie, and they do attempt to escape together. But the pair are cut off from the exit, as they are confronted by the Black Dragon. Now, knowing that they wouldn't be able to escape from this, Cassie takes a picture on Jackie's phone and decides to leave it behind, as she knows that the special forces will be looking into this, and by leaving behind a trail, it makes the chances of them being rescued that much higher. Now, as expected, the two are kidnapped by the Black Dragon, but as they're roaming outworld, the Black Dragons are attacked by the Red Dragons, and a massive fight would ensue. Now, Aaron Black frees them of their shackles, saying that he wants their assistance in helping them, but Cassie and Jackie refuse to work with him, and once they are finally freed of their bonds, they begin to attack everyone on sight. Now, during the climax of the fight, it's left between Cassie, Jackie, and Movado. Now, Movado does attempt to capture the two girls, but they prove to be far too much for him. Now, despite them being able to stop the Red Dragon, more Red Dragons turn up, and they are taken to Shang Tsung's island. Now, whilst here, Cassie and Jackie are beaten on a daily basis by Havoc and Scarlet, as he wishes to break the will of the two girls in order to control them. You see in the comic books, the main antagonists are Reiko and Havoc, and the pair have been using blood magic to influence anyone cut with a Kami Dogu. By them doing it, they will be able to create a powerful army and allow Reiko to obtain godhood. Now, after a few days pass, Cassie would be attacked in her own cell, and she was shocked to see that it was in fact Jackie that had struck her down. You see, Jackie's will was finally broken, and she was stabbed with a Kami Dogu dagger. Now flowing with the power of a blood god, Jackie would restrain Cassie while Scarlet stabbed her with a Kami Dogu, also having her follow the blood code. Now, after a few issues passed, Reiko and his forces would move to Shang Tsung's beach, where Kotal Khan and the special forces had arrived, as they learn about Reiko's plans. Now, whilst at the beach, Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade were forced to fight against Cassie and Jackie, with Cassie using her mother's guilt against her. But despite this, Sonya's cold demeanor allowed her to keep the upper hand, and once they realized that Cassie and Jackie were being controlled by magic that amplified their power and strength, it allowed Sonya and Johnny to go all out. Now, things became extremely difficult for Reiko, especially once Mileena turned up on the battlefield. But as a last-ditch effort, Havoc would summon a blood god Raiden, and he would shock and defeat everyone on the battlefield. It's here where they would use their blood in order to allow Reiko to obtain proper godhood. But we quickly do learn that this was all a ploy made by Havoc. Reiko slowly started to fall apart, and Havoc crushed his skull, showing us all that Reiko was in fact turned into nothing more than a vessel for the amulet of Shinnok. So now Havoc had a blood god army under his control. But when they are attacked by Takeda and the remainder of Kotal's forces, they are nearly overpowered, but the blood god warriors prove to be far too much, and even Kintaro falls in this battle, though only stopped once Scorpion appears and decapitates Havoc. By doing so, it severs the power he has with Shinnok's amulet, and Cassie is finally freed of the blood code. Now, Sonya and Cassie do share a very warm embrace. Despite Sonya's strict attitude, we do get to see a bit of affection shared amongst them. Now, after a week passes, and the Cage family finally drop Jackie back off at home, it's here where Cassie finally decides to enroll in the Special Forces in order to spend more time with both of her parents. Now, during the events of Mortal Kombat X, Johnny wanted to form a team for Cassie, one that was filled with newcomers with extremely high potential. So she was paired with her best friend Jackie, the son of Kenshi Takeda, and a cousin of Kung Lao Kung Jin, and she would act as their leader in the Special Forces. Now, on their very first mission, Cassie was given the assignment of going to the Lin Kuei Temple and meeting up with the Grandmaster Sub-Zero, as the Special Forces understandably wanted them on their side, so they would attempt to do this by sneaking in. However, since this was their first mission, we quickly learned that each individual member has their own personality that does tend to conflict with someone else's, and Kung Jin goes against Cassie's orders and directly confronts the Grandmaster, and as you would expect, this would lead to a massive fight, of which Cassie and her team are quickly defeated by the Grandmaster. Now, once the team are captured, much to their surprise, Johnny would appear and explain to them all that this was all a training exercise. He purposely put them against Sub-Zero so that he could test each of their individual skills and see where they falter as a team. Now, after being beaten and bruised, the team returns back to the Special Forces headquarters, where they meet up with Sonya and learn from Li Mei that the Outworld Civil War is still going on, and that Kotal is still battling Mileena on a daily basis. They also learn from Li Mei that apparently Mileena has been able to get her hands on the amulet of Shinnok, and this poses a very dangerous threat to everyone in the realm. So Cassie and her team would travel to Outworld to meet Kotal Khan, but when they arrive there, they are confronted by Aaron Black, and says that they aren't welcome here and that the Khan wishes them to leave. But when Kung Jin intervenes in a public execution, a huge fight would break out, and this eventually catches the attention of Kotal himself. Now Cassie attempts to strike a deal with Kotal, but he is not happy at all, especially with what happened with the public execution, and as such wants them all executed. But Kung Jin strikes a deal with Kotal, saying that if he wins, then he must listen to what they are offering. Now the two do fight, and Kotal is defeated. Now it's here where they're able to settle their affairs, and later learn from Sonya of Melina's location. Now Cassie and Devora would travel to the Kwartan jungle, and whilst there they battle the likes of Rain and Tanya, of which Tanya is able to defeat Cassie. Now Devora is able to overpower the two Edenians, and even capture Melina, so this actually brings the end of the Outworld Civil War, as Kotal Khan is now in possession of the amulet, and Melina is dead. Now despite Cassie's team and Kotal being on good terms, Kotal wants the amulet in his possession, as he doesn't believe it's safe in Earthrealm's hands, and as such wishes to have them shipped back home. Now whilst locked up in a ship, we do have a nice little heart-to-heart between Cassie and the rest of her team, and we learn that Cassie feels pressured by both of her parents, with Sonya's extremely high expectations and feeling like a second-rate Cage due to her father's success. But before they're able to go into more detail during this conversation, Takeda is able to knock out a guard and use the keys to free himself and his teammates. It's here where they're able to escape and learn that Devora has turned against Kotal, as she is now in possession of Shinnok's amulet. So after learning this information, they would inform the special forces and make their way back to the headquarters. But when they arrive there, they find the whole situation in disarray. As you see, just before they arrive, Jax was successful in capturing Quan Chi, but the facility would be attacked by the Shira Ryu, as Hanzo Hasashi had a personal vendetta against Quan Chi, so he was forced to restrain many of the special forces in order to kill Quan Chi, but not before Devora arrived and gave the sorcerer the opportunity to free Shinnok from his amulet. So the Elder God was freed, and Cassie's father was taken to the Jinsei chamber, as they all knew that Shinnok was after Earthrealm's life force. So her team would travel to the Sky Temple, but on their journey, they are attacked by Outworld's forces. Now Cassie attempts to explain the situation to them, and how Shinnok has corrupted Earthrealm's life force, but Kotal refuses to make any deal with them from this point onwards, believing that he may possibly be able to strengthen Outworld's defenses if he brings their head to the Elder God. Now her team are able to fight off Outworld for a very long time, but the numbers game isn't in their favor, and eventually they are overpowered. But fortunately for them, Sub-Zero and the rest of the Lin Kuei would appear, and the Grandmaster would push Kotal and his forces back to Outworld, giving Cassie and her team the opportunity to arrive at the temple. Now whilst trying to sneak through, they see that Shinnok has put revenants outside the facility to guard it, and they do attempt to sneak past them until their cover is blown, as Takeda nearly falls to his death, but Jackie starts to pull him up. Now knowing that they've been heard, Cassie and Kung Jin would engage with the revenants, and together they would defeat the revenant Princess Katana and her mother Sindel. Now once they enter the Jinsei chamber, they are instantly attacked by Devora, and Akaitin is able to injure Kung Jin. Now realizing how high the stakes are, Cassie decides to up her game. She defeats Devora and attempts to free her father from the cocoon he's in, but it's here where corrupted Shinnok makes his appearance. After corrupting the Jinsei, he's entered a new and even stronger form, and begins to taunt Cassie by torturing Johnny in front of her. Now wanting to save her father, Cassie would attempt to protect him from his attacks, and realize as she's doing this, it has actually unlocked her ability to tap into green energy, and with this strength she would use it to defeat the Elder God. Now after this, Kung Jin and Cassie would take Raiden's body and put it in the Jinsei chamber, allowing him to strip Shinnok of his corrupted form and heal the Jinsei of its corrupted state. Now Cassie then rushes over to her father, and they are soon joined by Sonya, and it's here where it seems like the family is happily reunited once more. So it does put a lot of conflict that Cassie had as a character to rest. Her and her team are now functioning properly, and almost certainly reaching Sonya's expectations, and she's finally able to tap into the green energy that she's otherwise been struggling to obtain. Now before I quickly wrap up this video, let's quickly talk about the green energy and where it originates from, because I'm well aware about the drama that does surround it, and I feel like it's definitely worth talking about it. Now the origins of the green energy is still somewhat shrouded in mystery, but what we do know from Johnny Cage, as he does explain it, are that Cassie and Johnny are descendants of a Mediterranean war cult, and they specialized in creating fighters that were designed to defeat the gods. Now this actually isn't the first instance of this happening. You see, Johnny was able to defeat and overpower Shinnok in the original timeline in Mortal Kombat Armageddon, so this power has existed for quite some time. As for how it triggers, it's very clear from every instance of how we've seen it be used, is when the person who obtains it is forced to watch someone they love in a great great deal of pain. This happened with Sonya and it's happened with Johnny. So that is how this power activates. As for the power cap on this thing, we just don't know. Green energy has always been something that sat on the sidelines, but has never been truly explored. And honestly, it's still quite new to the universe in terms of how it's being expanded on, which is why both Cassie's and Johnny's powers seem extremely strong, because they are an anti-god tool. And well, it is a skill and ability that's seemingly tailored only to them. But please do keep in mind that in one-on-one conflict, this type of power would not have such a great effect on someone who hasn't obtained godhood. But yes, that's basically it for the Cassie Cage video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this and learnt more by doing so. Cassie is actually one of my personal favorites of the new generation of characters. Despite the drama that does surround her, I really do like her. I love her humor, and I honestly do love her design in MK11. She does look fantastic, and I cannot wait to play more of her. So down in the comments below, let me know which character of the new generation really spoke to you personally. There's quite a few to pick from, so I'm interested to hear what you all have to say. And also don't forget, the Kung Lao video will be out tomorrow, so you guys are getting 2 History of episodes back to back this weekend. But yeah, that basically wraps up everything that I did want to say here. Now before this video finishes up, if possible, let's try getting it to about 500 likes. It's a great way of supporting this channel since YouTube's ad system is broken as hell. So by giving it a thumbs up, it helps out a ton. And also don't forget to tick that bell, as YouTube will always have the problem of my videos not appearing in your sub boxes. So by doing that, it's going to help me out and most certainly help you out. Now as always, please comment, like, subscribe and share this video with everyone you know. Please take care, and I'll see you